PlayStation is walking back its plans for PC releases, and I have mixed feelings about this. Let's talk about it. Hello there everybody, and welcome to The Comfy Spot. My name is Tyler, and today we're going to be talking about this news that came out by way of Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg, that PlayStation is going to be walking back its plans on putting their single-player first-party games on PC going forward. Now this news, we kind of got rumors and rumblings about it online last week from many different sources, one of them being Jason Schreier himself. And at the time, he said that he would have more news to talk about regarding this soon, more of like an official report. So instead of talking about it when everyone else was at the time, I said I would wait until we got his official report on this new topic, on this new development. So now that we have it here, let's actually discuss it, dig into it, get my thoughts on it, see where I'm feeling and why I think Sony would be making this move. Of course, links to everything that we're going to be talking about will be down in the description, so the link to Jason Schreier's article as well as a few other things will be down in the description for you to go check out yourself. But in Jason's article, he says that, this news, it comes from his sources that are, familiar with the company's plans. Of course, they could not be speaking, they couldn't give their names or anything like that. That is par for the course with journalism and these types of reports and all. Apparently, like I said, Sony is changing its course. They're not going to be doing first-party single-player games on PC anymore. So, Soros coming at the end of April from Housemarque, that is not going to be coming to PC. It is going to be remaining a console-exclusive game. The same for Ghost of Yotei, which came out last year. That will not be coming to PC. It is going to be a console-only game. Marvel's Wolverine, which is coming out later this year on September 15th, I believe is the date that we got officially. That will not be coming to PC at a later date. It will be console only. Same goes for Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet coming from Naughty Dog. Same goes for God of War, Sons of Sparta. That's not coming to PC either. So this is where things are currently right now. As it pertains to online multiplayer games such as Bungie's Marathon and Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls coming from Arc System Works, those types of games will still release on PC, which of course makes the most sense. Those games like that, they need a thriving multiplayer playing audience, they need a thriving player base, and makes sense to have them in as many places as possible. So no change there, of course. Now, Jason Schreier, he did say in his article that certain PlayStation published but externally developed games, such as Death Stranding 2, published by PlayStation Studios but developed by Kojima Productions, and Kena Scars of Cosmora, which is also coming out later on this year, developed by Ember Labs, those games will still be releasing on PC later on this year. Is that going to be the case for any other future PlayStation published but externally developed title that PlayStation puts out? So say for example, if we get the next Stellar Blade, for example, if PlayStation themselves help publish that game, is that going to be a thing where that is still going to be getting a PC release because it's more kind of in the purview of the developers themselves? Maybe I would imagine as much, because that's more of a them thing, not really a PlayStation Studios thing. But we'll see. I imagine we'll have to find out more about that as time goes on. Now, Jason's sources did say in the when he was talking to them, as he notes in his article, that things could change in the future regarding this shift in terms of their strategy with PC single-player releases. But PlayStation did recently cancel their plans to release Ghost of Yotei on PC, as well as other single-player first-party games are in development. So again, really nail in the coffin on that single-player games plan right there for PC. I'm sorry, people who were expected to play Ghost of Yotei on PC, if you were one of them when it came out last year. It's not gonna happen. So if you have a PS5, just get it now. And if you don't have a PS5, I'm sorry, you're just kind of gonna have to get a PS5 at some point if you want to play Ghost of Yotei. Now, Jason notes in his article this could be happening for two different reasons, and I'll discuss them briefly, and they also kind of go into some of the same thoughts that I have as well regarding this, but we'll talk about what he says first, and then we'll get into more so my thoughts on things. So one point that he mentions is that PlayStation's games on PC, the games that they've been releasing on PC, they have not been selling all that well recently. And, if we look at a November 2025 report from Alinea Analytics, PlayStation's published games that they have released on PC have sold 43 million copies on Steam since Sony first started putting games on PC back in 2020 with Horizon Zero Dawn. Now, this report came from November 2025. As of the time of that report, Helldivers 2 was, and I would still say currently is, the best-selling game on PC from PlayStation's published games there, with a total of 12.7 million copies sold. Now, after that, there is quite a drop-off in terms of the top 5 games, with the second best-selling game on PC being Horizon Zero Dawn at 4.5 million copies. So already right there, it's kind of like, oh wow, in the 6 years that Sony's been doing this, Helldivers 2 has sold the most copies, and it not just the most, but like over 25% of Sony's PC game sales have been from Helldivers 2. We can get into the why of that in a bit, but it is still kind of like, wow, such a stark thing to see. What's even more surprising is when you go deeper into the Alinea Analytics report, which again, also linked in the description, recent releases for the sequels that they put out on PC, such as God of War Ragnarok and Spider-Man 2, those sales paled in comparison to their predecessors, with God of War 2018 selling more than 2.5 times as many copies as Ragnarok did on PC in their first 427 days on Steam. Spider-Man 2018, the original Spider-Man game, sold more than twice as many copies as Spider-Man 2 in their first 294 days on Steam, respectively. So when you think about that, it's just like, wow, like just over time, the I guess you could say like the novelty of it kind of wore off in terms of Sony's first party games coming to PC. There were also, I don't remember exactly which games it were, but some PC ports that they put out did have some performance problems on PC. I do remember that being a thing, so I'm sure that might have played a factor in regards to the sales of some of these titles on PC. But even still, it is kind of surprising to see that, wow, like Spider-Man 2 sold significantly less than the first one, and God of War Ragnarok sold significantly less than the first one on PC. These are games that you would imagine would sell major numbers on PC on Steam, but clearly that's not the case. Now, part of this, maybe, this could have been alleviated with if Sony did same day releases on PC and console. But the thing is, that would really bleed into how Sony views the console for them. They view the console, their PlayStation 5, their PlayStation 4, whatever console you want to talk about, they view the console as the center of their gaming business. They don't view it the way that Microsoft does, as like it's part of it, but we're also trying to go past it. For Sony, PlayStation is the core thing. That is what their business is always going to revolve around and focus on. Anything else is more so tertiary and secondary to that, and they don't want anything else to be a factor that will negatively affect that core console business. Now, that's getting a bit to my thoughts. Just gonna go back a tiny bit more to Jason's article. He also notes that apparently there is a group inside Sony, inside PlayStation, that also had concerns that the PC push would have a negative effect on the PlayStation brand, the PS5, and future consoles as well. Now, Jason continues to speculate. This is him purely speculating, and him and I share this speculation. I thought this before I read it in his article, but him and I are both speculating here that Sony could possibly be making this change because of Microsoft's upcoming new console that is rumored and basically all but confirmed to be a PC console hybrid. And if that rumor is true, it would make sense that, Sony might want to avoid the optics that come with just being able to say, oh, you can play a PlayStation game on this Xbox console. Perhaps that's part of why Sony is dialing back this PC gaming push, or maybe not entirely the reason. Perhaps that's part of it, but that's a bit of the facts. So now let's get more so into my own thoughts and my own analysis on this change here. So number one, I am actually a bit disappointed by this move. I'm pretty disappointed. 2 years ago, back in 2024, I put out a video talking about the future of first-party exclusives for Xbox and PlayStation specifically. Less Nintendo because, yes, Nintendo they are all competing with each other in the console space, but Nintendo is a bit of a unicorn in the way that they operate in all, and so they're not directly competing the same exact way PlayStation and Xbox are. Nevertheless, though, I put out a video talking about it and how I imagine the future of first-party exclusives for PlayStation and Xbox would be basically a thing of timed exclusivity, where each of those companies will basically be putting their games out on each other's platforms at some point in time in the future, but they would most likely release them first on their own platforms exclusively for a short period of time, be that 6 months to a year, whatever the case may be. And after that time period ran out, the game would then be released on the other competing platform, be that Xbox or PlayStation. And at the time I said that, Xbox clearly has all the incentive to do that first because of where they are in the marketplace, in the rankings and everything like that. And Sony had less of a reason to, but I imagine they would in the future because game development is expensive and, they would need to get as much money as possible to be able to fund these games that we all know and love. Clearly, that's not a thing that's happening. Clearly, I was very, very wrong about that. I was imagining that this would lead us to a more open, free future where you could play whatever game you wanted on whatever box you wanted to. You would only buy one box and then you could basically play any game you wanted to, barring Nintendo. Again, they're a unicorn, they're doing their own thing. And I loved that idea. That's such a that's like the type of future that we would all love to be able to have. Just buy one thing, you play your games, and that is that. Of course, you could say, oh, just buy a PC, and then you can do that. But, PC gaming, there's more hoops to jump through with PC gaming than there are on console. Nevertheless, that was where I was, and that's why I am disappointed that Sony is walking this strategy back. That now Microsoft is the only one who's really operating in this realm of putting their games anywhere and everywhere, really. Sony is going back where, our first-party single-player games, they are only on our platform. You can't play them anywhere else. Get in or get out, essentially. And it is disappointing. I would love for these games to be played by more people, as many people as possible. That way, my favorite developers, or some of my favorite developers, can continue to make excellent games for many, many, many years to come. And more fans and more people in the world could experience games from these studios that I know and love so very much. However, with all that said, I can understand why Sony would be making this change, or at least with the logic and explanations and rationales that I can think of, I can understand why Sony would be making this change. Like I said before, console has always been Sony's #1 priority when it comes to PlayStation. Yes, they've done some handhelds and they've tried to, have the handheld be its own thing and have the handhelds flourish, be that the PSP or the PlayStation Vita. Clearly, they are not in that realm right now, and although we know that there are rumors that they are going to be doing a handheld of some sort for the PlayStation 6, that definitely falls more in line with the current state of gaming handheld devices than the dedicated gaming handhelds that we had back in the day of the PSP and the PlayStation Vita. So console, again, has always been Sony's main thing. And the release strategy that they had for PC games was done in a way so that they would avoid negatively affecting the sales of their consoles and their games. That's why they were putting out these PC ports, 6 months, not 6 months, but a year, 18 months after the game initially released on PlayStation 5, where, the main day one people got the game, they already bought in, and then they wanted to try and double dip some, give the game a second lease on life, in a different market, expose the game, expose the IP, expose the PlayStation brand to a different market that, maybe didn't have a PlayStation 5, or just to people who wanted to double dip on PC and have that PC gaming super high-end experience, or just the modding experience that comes with PC. Put it out there as well. That was the idea behind it. And they also saw PC as a way, aside from getting extra money and exposing these games to a different market, they also had it with the idea that doing so would encourage PC gamers to then buy a PS5 so that they could get future PlayStation Studios games on day one and not have to wait for them to come to PC 12, 18, 24 months later. And with that strategy in mind, it made sense. It made sense as a way to try and grow the PlayStation brand, grow the ecosystem in some way, increase their console sales. But even still, while it was a clever plan, I guess you could say, it never seemed to me necessarily like one that Sony was like all in, ride or die on, where they're like, yeah, we are hedging all our bets on this. This is like most certainly going to work. It always did seem like something where it was like, we're doing this because we want to expand the brand and the IP and the games and stuff. And hopefully it gives us this desired result. If it doesn't, at the very least, we're getting more revenue from these other sales of the game, even if it doesn't increase PlayStation console sales or future first-party sales of games on our console. I didn't necessarily see it that way. Maybe Sony did, who knows? And the thing is, although Sony did, make some good revenue from their games that they sold on PC since 2020, the revenue that they made, according again to the Alinea Analytics report, which again, link the description down below, as of that 2025 report, they made $1.5 billion in gross revenue, which is adjusted to $1.2 billion after accounting for Valve's 30% cut. That's a good chunk of change right there, but it is still clearly a small amount in the grand scheme of things that Sony clearly just doesn't feel makes sense to continue pursuing with their whole thing about the console being their one core focus. And with the future of the games industry and the console space about to be shaken up with the next Xbox and the introduction of the Steam machine, as well as just the power of Nintendo itself and the Switch 2, as well as a potentially longer generation for the PlayStation 5, all those factors taken into account, I can understand why Sony would say, you know what, they want to shore up their quote unquote power in the console space and just put all their attention solely on the PlayStation 5 and future, PlayStation 6 for their games. They don't want, I can understand why they would say, we don't want to be a beyond the console company like Microsoft, in the sense that we are putting our games on PC, we're putting them on Xbox, we're putting them all over the place. We want our games to be PlayStation exclusive, PlayStation console exclusive. We don't want them to be anywhere else except for on a PlayStation. We want that to mean something because PlayStation itself means something to us. PlayStation is a place where you go to get these high quality cinematic adventure, action adventure games that are highly acclaimed, so on and so forth. This is where you go to get them. You cannot get them anywhere else. Similar to how Nintendo was like, yeah, we're Nintendo, and if you want Zelda and Mario and Kirby and Pokemon, you are coming to our system come hell or high water. Like, it is what it is. You don't have any ifs, ands, or buts about it. And the thing is, again, unlike Microsoft, Sony can afford to do this because of the position that they're in the gaming market, the gaming landscape. Microsoft is at the bottom of the totem pole. They kind of had no choice but to do the thing that they did with going beyond the console and putting their games at all these other different places because of just their console sales and respectively their game sales. Everything was so low. So it made sense why Microsoft did it by force, by, they had no choice but to do it. Sony has the cards here where they can choose, you know what, we want to be back to just us. They want to just focus on their own platform where they will be able to retain all of the revenue from their own games, as well as take cuts from the microtransactions that are made or sold on their platform, as well as the sales of any other game that is sold on the PlayStation Store. It makes sense of why they would want to do that, as opposed to putting a game on Steam where you have to contend with the cuts that Valve is going to take from every sale of their game on PC, on Steam. Why deal with that when you can just say, you know what, we're just gonna focus in on our place, try and build up our place the best we can, try and make as much money as we can here with how turbulent the industry is getting and going, and so on and so forth. I can get all that. Now, will this be good for PlayStation in the long term? Honestly, who knows? And maybe I would have a bit more of a formed, solid idea or thought on this if I had more time to really sit with this news and really think about it. I have not had that time, nor am I a super in-depth insider, nor am I an analyst or anything like that. That is all stuff way above my pay grade of knowledge. So I'm not going to try and sit here and say I know this is going to be for the best. I don't know. Again, times are also very turbulent in the industry from a financial perspective. This could be good for PlayStation in the long term. It could, it could allow them to reap benefits. They could just make a bunch of money by, again, focusing in on their own platform. It could cause PlayStation 5 console sales to increase, since people will know they have to get a PS5. It could bode well for the PS6. It could do well for them on the PS6, where if the PS6 is coming out and they're pushing that message of, yes, games are only on PlayStation, only on our console, you are not getting them on PC. That could cause PS6 sales to be as good as the PS5 sales have been, or the PS4 sales were. Of course, at that time, how much the PS6 costs is going to be more of a deciding factor in that regard. But, maybe it could be good for them in the long term. I don't know. I'm not trying to say I do know. The other concern I have here, and perhaps one of my biggest concerns, actually, is what's going to happen to Nixies. This is the studio that Sony themselves acquired because they wanted a good studio for their PC porting expertise. Nixies had a reputation for putting out great, good quality PC ports, so it made sense why Sony acquired them when they did. So if Sony is no longer having this concern or this push for putting their single player games on PC, what's going to happen to Nixies? Is Nixies going to get shut down because Sony is basically doing the Toy Story Andy and Woody meme where he's like, I don't want to play with you anymore? Is that what's going to happen here? Are they going to shut down Nixies? Maybe they'll keep them around for multiplayer games that are being released on PC. I honestly, I do not know. I have no idea, and that is my big concern. And if they are going to keep them around for multiplayer games, how long is that going to last, considering that Sony's live service push has completely fallen apart? Yes, we have Horizon Hunters Gathering on the horizon. Marathon is literally coming out tomorrow as of recording, today as of this video going live. Fair Games is somehow still a thing. Who knows if there are other live service games in development over at PlayStation? I highly doubt it. But even still, how long would Nixies be helping out with those PC games or those PC ports if they were having a hand in them at all? That is a major question here, especially after Sony just recently shut down Bluepoint Games after, because they were like, yep, we don't have a game for you to work on. You were doing the God of War live service game and we canceled that. You couldn't find a project after that, so now we're done with you. After that, I would hope that Nixies would not get shut down, and if anything, maybe Nixies is sold to another company if Sony feels that they no longer have any need for them. I would hate to see another studio shut down and more people be laid off, especially a studio with the expertise and the talent that Nixies does, because that would just be a major loss and incredibly irresponsible and callous of PlayStation and Sony leadership and executives to make a cut like that because of this shift in direction that the company is going to be undergoing. So those are my thoughts on this matter. Let me know all of yours down in the comment section below. Let me know, are you excited by this? Are you worried by this? Do you think this is the right thing for PlayStation to do? Do you think this makes sense? Do you understand why, even if you disagree with them making this decision? Again, I personally do wish that they were still doing the PC thing, but all said and done, when I think about things, I can at least understand why this decision is being made, and I don't think it will necessarily harm PlayStation in the short term, or really maybe in the long term when it comes to their game sales. I don't think it'll hurt them that much because people definitely love buying their PlayStation games. But for the business overall, long term, we'll have to see. And again, considering how little they were selling their games on PC, even then, I don't think it's going to hurt them that much, the company that much in the long term. I think it'll really just be like it was a thing we tried, and you know what, it really wasn't worth it in the end. It wasn't really worth the time or the effort that we put into it. It's not worth the money going into it, and let's not try and do this anymore. Let's just go back to what we're focusing on. So that was my thoughts. Again, let me know all yours down in the comment section below. Like I said, links to Jason Schreier's article as well as the Alinea Analytics report that I talked about are also down in the comment section. I mean, not the comment section, in the description box. So make sure you go and check those out for full details and all the reports and everything. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And hit the notification bell. That way you know as soon as the videos go live. My name is Tyler. This has been The Comfy Spot. And we'll talk next time. Have a good one.